Protein is now at Starbucks, and it's never tasted so good. You can add protein cold foam to your favorite drink or try one of our new protein lattes or matcha. Try it today at Starbucks.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
You know you need fiber for a healthy gut, but do you actually know how to get it? Quaker's been serving up fiber since 1877, with over 100 great-tasting, good source of fiber options to choose from. Whether you like old-fashioned oats, instant oatmeal, granola, or oatmeal squares, Quaker makes it delicious. So good. Get your fiber with Quaker. Shop Quaker's good source of fiber products at a store near you.
This is the Blue Moon Podcast. Coming up, we've got all the news and views from Manchester City's week. It's your club, and this is your show.
Well, after 5 long years, the League Cup trophy is back in its rightful home. Since the competition has been sponsored by Carabao, Manchester City have won it more than everybody else combined, and so it felt only right to see Bernardo Silva lift the 3-handled trophy aloft at Wembley on Sunday. It's the international break, so with no games to preview, we're going to spend some time basking in the glory of Pep Guardiola's 19th piece of silverware in his decade in England. Very few people, including us on last week's Blue Moon podcast, gave City much of a chance ahead of the game, so why did it end up being so comfortable? We'll talk about that shortly. City's approach against Arsenal has been drawing attention too, so we'll unpack that a little later on with the Athletic's John Mackenzie, plus we'll discuss what effect, if any, that result will have on the title race. I'm David Mooney, and showboating by doing keepy-uppies on the touchline, we've got from Sporting News, Dom Farrell.
Hello.
And rolling around on the floor pretending to be injured before giving a cheeky smile to the fans, we've also got City fan Casey.
All right.
Did you notice? I'm wondering if I've got you two the wrong way round there, and if Dom, I'm judging football inability based on what I've seen and from media games and from playing with UKC. I think you're more the showboating type.
Me?
Yeah, I think you're the get the ball and I'll just do a few keepy uppies before passing it on. I don't get that vibe from Dom.
Yeah. Well, when you sent the note through originally, I thought you had it the wrong way around, to be honest with you. But I've never played with Dom, so
no. So I that media game would have been 2019. I don't think I've played football since. Not to say it went really badly, but so yeah. No, I'm generally a very functional right back at best. So
and when I'm in net, I'm also the type of keeper. If someone's coming through 1-on-1, I will scream at the striker to try and put them off because.
I hate you people that do that. Oh, they're just absolute nonsense. Yeah. Let's start with that showboating then, because it was very enjoyable for the City fans inside Wembley. Have either of you two ever indulged in a bit of showboating yourselves, either on or off the pitch? Casey, any times when you've just kind of thought, you know what, I'm gonna give it a little.
Yeah. So we used in secondary school we used to play futsal a lot, which basically opens you up to have to do showboating. So my favourite one was squaring a man up and then rolling my right foot over the ball onto my left and going past him that way. But my favourite individual bit was in our last year of secondary school. We had a new PE teacher who was a woman, and she was probably about 4 years older than us, maybe 4 or 5 years older than us, and we all fancied her. And she wasn't
where I was expecting this episode to start, but here we are.
She was refereeing one of the futsal 5-a-side games, and the ball bounced. So obviously in futsal the nets are higher than normal 5-a-side nets, and the ball, obviously it doesn't have much of a bounce, but it just had a tiny bounce just behind the halfway line, and I've basically lobbed it from in my own half. And I've not watched it go in, and I've looked at her and winked at her as I've done it. And I got absolutely bollocked for it, but I didn't even watch the ball go in the net, and it was probably still top 5 greatest moments of my life.
Yeah. Understandable, absolutely understandable. that is top tier showboating. Dom, about yourself, any showboats that you're particularly proud of?
Right, so mine's also, well, it's sixth form, but it was the same, attached to the same secondary school, related, and also has a bit of City context to it. So my school was Cardinal Langley in North Manchester. They had like an agreement with some school up in Newcastle where there'd be teams from there came down every year to play against a couple of year groups, and it was good because like most school football team games like after the day's finished, but because these lot of like schlepped all the way down from the northeast, they're like you'd play them in the day and like be a bit of a crowd at break time and stuff. Anyway, so I was in upper sixth and I was going to be on the bench for this game against the Geordies. Night before, City played Grochlin in the UEFA Cup.
Oh yes, those were the days.
Yeah, that one. So me and my mate after that went out and got into the fine establishment that was Fifth Ave in Manchester.
Great place.
Getting in there underage, terrible business. Because I was on the bench, I wasn't going to play. Meanwhile, while I'm sort of out on before I was even out on the lash, I would imagine, the lad who played right back for the sixth form team, he was lower sixth, but he was like a dead good player to the extent that he went to train with a proper team in midweek, to the extent that he did his hamstring in this training session. Anyway, so we've had a rare old time after City against Grochlin, rolling in from town, early hours. You're still merrily getting into school in the morning, find out that the right back's done his hamstring, so I'm playing, having... I was basically going to have to George Best it, or Richard done it, whatever. Do you know what? Played pretty well. Played all right. It went fine, but I then did get substituted early in the second half when, as I said, very functional right back. Early in the second half, I got the ball and 1-2'd my way down the wing, like 2 consecutive 1-2s with different players and pinged the crossing. And after that, the PE teacher subbed me off thinking, like, he's never getting away with that again. This is beyond the limit of his capability. So yeah, showboating 1-2s up and down the wing after having just got in with my showboating. That PE teacher, by the way, unfortunately so for someone in the late 90s, noughties in Manchester, was a Gillingham fan.
Oh,
can you imagine?
Wow.
How unfortunate is that? Like,
of all the places to land as well, yeah.
Yeah. Of all the gobshites to have in his class as well.
Excellent. Let's keep the good mood coming because obviously City have just lifted the Carabao Cup. Casey, I think this sounds or feels a little bit entitled, given where City have been over the last the decade of Guardiola. But it was. I can't explain I don't know if I can articulate the feeling properly of full time, but it was really nice to have unexpectedly won a big game.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
I didn't go to the match. Obviously, I've been to Wembley, God knows how many times over the years.
So entitled.
That's as much as I've celebrated at home in years.
Yeah.
Like each goal, like it was obviously normal goal celebrations, but there was also a feeling of relief as well. Like when each goal went in. So it was like a double release, but yeah, they were both very satisfying.
And it's that thing, isn't it? Of like in so many big games where City have scored, like it 0-0 is a bad result for City generally these days because of like the need to win and win and win and win. And so you can play Arsenal, you can play Chelsea, you can play Liverpool in the league, and you kind of feel like you're on edge until City have scored because they're not achieving the objective. Whereas this one was kind of like you were on edge because you were worried that Arsenal might achieve their objective, and then City have scored. It's like, this is fantastic. This is against what I was expecting.
Arsenal played like their objective was 0-0 though, didn't they? To be fair,
well, they did. Yeah.
State of them at the weekend. But yeah, I really enjoyed the dominance of how we played. Like, we just did not let them off the hook. Like, one of the most frustrating things about when you're watching football is when you don't, when you lose out on a 50-50 or somebody's been a bit weak in the tackle and stuff like that. We seemed to win every single one of those at the weekend. We just did not let them out. We were just relentless and won the ball. And, it just felt like a real throwback of a performance. And I think, obviously... like you mentioned, the nostalgia of us not being favourites for a game or a big game for the first time. Because even against Inter Milan, we were the massive favourites for that final, weren't we?
Yeah,
and it's like we had the weight of history as the pressure on it, but we were still favourites for that game. But it was a real it felt like the 2011 semi-final and final and things like that. But it felt really good. I've enjoyed that game more than I have a game in at least a couple of years. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah. When did you start to feel safe in this one, Dom? Because obviously Arsenal have the whole set piece thing, the score a goal out of nothing thing, and City, as good as City were in the game, you do always feel like they've got a bit of a soft underbelly this season. But the second one goes in, and like Cherki were doing the kick-ups on the side of the pitch. It's very early to be kind of indulging in that sort of behaviour. But you can kind of get it. It did feel quite safe.
I think he felt safe before me. So because I was at the game working, and there's the element of you've got a right to get your match piece ready for full time, and like get your intro ready. Now, generally, if a team was 2-0 up against a team offering scant threat, I'd be bashing those top paragraphs together with 20 minutes left. Very much like Rayan Cherki sort of attitude. I can't have felt totally safe because I did delay it. Because I do hate the odd times when I've written intros about a City win and then it isn't. Because it somehow feels like it's all my fault. So...
it's really cute that you think you have that effect on the team.
It is pathetic. It is absolutely preposterous. But I can't. The worst one of them ever, and this is years ago, and I wasn't at this game. I was doing it remotely. But do you remember? Obviously, you'll remember the Edin Dzeko lying down at Goodison Park game, basically because I delayed writing the intro so much. Edin having a sleep was really quite helpful. But that one felt vile because you're writing like City with a massive step towards the title, and it's like, but this might not be true. But yeah, so I delayed it a little, delayed the top paragraphs as late as I could till about 10 minutes to go. I think just after that Calafiori one went just wide, I thought,
when it hit the post.
Yeah. This is going to sound stupid, but I know they hit the post twice, but that's as far away from scoring hitting the post you can get, really, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's
right on the outside.
It's not really a dangerous hit of the post. I know what you mean.
Yeah, it felt like they weren't close to going in, even though they obviously were because they hit the actual post. And to be fair, the Jesus one, he's got a bit of previous to that, hasn't he? Like it made me think of, remember that really clever header he scored in that that 2-2 against Liverpool, where he sort of like puts a bit of loop. You're thinking, how's he got that under the bar? So that's clearly just something he's pretty good at. Because I know we'll move on to talk about how great James Trafford was, but he wasn't really any. If that had looped under the bar, I don't think he was getting there. But sort of safe, I guess, with 10 minutes left, because you realise with this Arsenal team, as much as obviously they're top of the league, they're probably going to win it. You can't argue with the results, but everything is such a grind for them that it almost feels like going bang bang quickly with 2 goals. It's just not really in the muscle memory for him, really.
Yeah, I won't say who it was, but I did the Let Me Talk podcast with Sam Lee immediately after the game. Sam was in the Wembley press box. And a member of the press pack, I edited this out of the episode, but a member of the press pack who is not a City fan and is not an Arsenal fan, walked behind Sam and tapped him on the shoulder and just said, "That was a win for football." And KC, it's really weird, isn't it? Being like, after all this time, City are the good guys. That's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, like how are we the bastions of football with the still 115 hanging over our heads that they keep telling us about every fucking minute of the hour? Like, we're constantly told that if this was any other club, it would be in the news constantly, despite it being in the news constantly.
No one talks about it, mate. What are you on about?
We're constantly being told that no one talks about it whilst talking about nothing else. And it drives me insane. So I think... if you're an Arsenal fan, you just... The thing is, I know loads of sound Arsenal fans, which is really weird. So it takes some going for their fan base to be that much of a bunch of wankers to get them into that position. Obviously, the football that they play is also dire, which doesn't help. But I think if that was, if it was, a team just grinding the way out and owned it and just said, yeah, that's what we're doing. But they can't. They're just incapable of any sort of self-reflection.
We're not wasting time. What are you talking about? We're not wasting time. You are, lads. You clearly are.
It's just a bizarre attitude, and even like valid criticisms that they face, they always go, "Oh, they just hate us because we're Arsenal." No one gives a toss about Arsenal. It's literally you lot being a bunch of dickheads constantly, all the fucking time, in real life and on the fucking internet. You're a bunch of wankers.
I've set him off now. I didn't mean to do this, but here we are.
It's So to answer your positive question about us being the winners of football or whatever, I thought we played really well, and we found them out tactically quite a bit. I know it would have been different with Raya in net, the way that their build-up play would have progressed the ball, but Rice was dropping deep into the centre half position quite a lot, and he just had nowhere to go. Like if he.
Well, he rarely does when he does that, does he?
Yeah, exactly. I think if you think of how we would have manoeuvred the ball and the way that the players that Guardiola has signed over the past couple of years, like Nunes was signed as a midfielder, but he's playing as a fullback because of the way that he can actually progress the ball. He doesn't need to pass it. He will just get on and leg it with it, won't he, if there's an opening up. And I think the majority of our defenders, barring maybe Diaz, would do that as well. And yeah, I think they were found wanting, really, and they were a bit tactically naive. Whether that actually matters in in the upcoming game against Arsenal or not, you can't really say. But it certainly looks very positive for that game coming up.
It was nice that it happened in a cup final as well, just to get City's hands back on that three-handled beauty.
You see stats pop up all the time about clubs and players, and you want to know that exact thing about City. There's an answer. Statscity.co.uk. Want to find out all of the players who played alongside club legends like David Silva, Sergio Aguero or Vincent Kompany? Or maybe you'd like to know which team found it hardest to score past Joe Hart. You can find out City's record in every competition, at every stadium, and under every manager. Just go to statscity.co.uk and browse away. That's statscity.co.uk.
There's one place for the newest drops in wellness and performance, and the biggest sale of the year. It's The Drop by GNC, curating the best of what's new, handpicked by the pros who know what works. And right now, get it all, buy one, get one 50% off during the semi-annual Live Well sale. From crushing workouts to leveling up your nutrition and everything in between, get the best deals on the latest innovations. All the newness is all on sale right now during the Live Well sale on The Drop by GNC.
Ad-free episodes are available on Patreon. Sign up at patreon.com/Blue Moon Podcast.
Dom, Casey's referenced it there. What does it do for the season? Because, how does it make this season feel now? Because Arsenal are probably still going to win the title, let's be honest. But City are now not going to end this season without silverware. They've still got the FA Cup, which we'll preview on next week's show, the game against Liverpool. There's still a lot going for this season, even though it feels like the league might have slipped away from them.
Yeah, definitely. If you think about winning the League Cup in a season you don't win the league, obviously City did that in 2020, like when they beat Villa, but Liverpool were already over the hills and far away by that point. That didn't feel as significant because it was a team largely full of people that had won loads of trophies. The amount of guys in that City team where it was their first trophy. I mean, I saw an Arsenal. I mean, we've all seen lots of Arsenal accounts online this week. God bless them. But
some of us have gone looking for them. I'll be honest.
They've been mad.
We've all got Gunnosaurus's For You tab on Twitter. But there was one guy an Arsenal going, look at these City players celebrating like they've won the Champions League. It's like, first of all, mate, how would you know? But second of all, it's massive for those guys. Because imagine if you put yourself in the shoes of, like, say, any of the particularly the signings from, say, last January. you sign for a team that have habitually won trophy after trophy every year under this arguably the greatest manager of all time, and then you rock up there and they win nothing for 2 years. Makes you look a bit shit, doesn't it? So it is massive for them, and yeah, they might win the FA Cup as well. They might not. That'd be. And I know for City they're at a point where the Premier League and the Champions League are the big ones, and the other ones can feel a bit like window dressing. But again, I think that's judging that through the prism of the brilliant Guardiola teams. This is a very new team with, new fresh-faced guys that everyone, the fans are falling in love with. People like Kusanov, people like Cherki, and this is their first one. And that's just. I think it changes the whole complexion of the season. I mean, it would be nice to push Arsenal close. If, say, I guess you could ask this question again if City then drop points at Chelsea and then don't beat Arsenal and it's completely dead for the final month.
It feels then, yeah.
Well, I was going to say, how much do you think the international break coming at the time it has is going to have an effect?
I don't know. I mean, I think it is. It's kind of one thing that's quite nice though is that you've got this. The Premier League title race doesn't really come back. The fact that they come back from the international break and they've got Liverpool at home in an early kickoff in a big atmosphere with Liverpool not playing great at the moment, that feels like a chance to keep the momentum going in a way that maybe if they had Bournemouth at home in a midweek and everyone was nervous, it wouldn't.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah,
I'm not sure. I saw a thing that like City have got the most players away on international duty, and again another Arsenal online thing I've seen have been very irritated about people pointing out their players are pulling out of international games. It's like, it's fine, lads, just own it.
Yeah,
Teams chasing titles have had their players writing off March internationals since March internationals were a thing. But it's that thing of, oh, no one said this about all the other teams. Like, they did, but you just weren't paying attention because you see things about your team and it's people can just go mad. But I think irrespective of what happens from here in terms of how good or bad the season is, it's important to remember how Sunday and the couple of days after felt, because
it was mega. Yeah,
no one can.
It felt like the old days again, didn't it? That one. I don't know why. It just felt very nostalgic, that win. Also, just slightly off topic, but obviously you've both said you're rooting round on the about Arsenal comments and stuff like that. The strangest one that I've seen come up time and time again over the past few days is people saying, Arsenal fans, sorry, not people, Arsenal fans saying, it seemed to them like Pep and Arteta had an agreement that Pep could win this one.
I haven't seen that. That is mental. I haven't seen that.
What the fuck are you talking about, lads? I've seen that so many times. That is absolutely mental.
Oh, I might go and indulge in that in a bit, just to perk up my Thursday afternoon.
It's like quite a lot's been made of Arteta and the Arsenal players staying and clapping City as well. It's like, isn't that just what you do after a cup final?
Where are they going? They've not got a flight to catch.
yeah, quite famously, they're only around the corner, aren't they?
Yeah.
It felt like a home game, didn't it?
Yeah.
Sorry.
It was Guardiola's 5th League Cup title as well. He's the first manager to win 5 League Cups, which means...
It's still the Pellegrini Trophy, no matter what way.
It's a quiz on Pep Guardiola's League Cup finals.
Yeah, it's a quiz on Guardiola's League Cup finals.
You fucking bastard.
I knew I'd get that reaction. So there we are. You all know how it works now. 6 questions. Take your pick, 1 to 6. KC, because of that reaction alone, I am going to let you have the choice. Would you like to go first or second?
First.
Okay, pick a number, 1 to 6.
3.
Number 3. Who is the only player to have scored in more than 1 League Cup final under Pep Guardiola?
Oh, God. I have no idea. Sterling?
It's a good guess, but it's not. It's Sergio Aguero. 2018 against Arsenal, 2020 against Villa.
Fair enough.
There you go. Swing and a miss. Dom, over to you. 1, 2, 4, 5 or 6 available.
5, please.
Number 5. Who is the only player to appear in all 5 of City's League Cup final victories under Pep Guardiola?
Got to be Bernardo, right?
Yeah, got to be.
It is Bernardo, yeah. Thank goodness he came on as a substitute in a couple of the early ones on like the 87th minute, otherwise that question was impossible. Okay, 1-0 to Dom. Over to you, KC. 1, 2, 4 or 6?
4, please.
Number 4. Who were the opponents for the only League Cup final win under Pep Guardiola where City wore their away kit?
Villa.
It was Villa, 2020. There we go. They had the black on.
Are these League Cup in general or all Pep League Cup ones?
All Pep League Cup finals.
No, because
yeah.
we're only halfway through the quiz.
Because when you said he was the only, I thought you were going to say he was the only team we've lost the League Cup final to. Is what I thought you were going to say.
No. Because you were talking all over Andy during the intro about it being the Pellegrini Cup. You didn't quite get the Pep link.
You deserved it.
Yeah.
You deserved it.
Yeah. So 1-1, Dom. Over to you. You can take the lead. 1, 2, or 6 available.
2, please.
Number 2. Who was the only City player to miss in the shootout when they beat Chelsea on penalties in 2019?
Ooh. Is it Leroy Sané?
It was Leroy Sané. Yeah. There we go. 2-1.
The best thing Kepa's done in a League Cup final by fucking miles.
The only thing Kepa's done of a positive note in the League Cup final by fucking miles.
I enjoyed him just refusing to go off. I think just refusing to go off.
That was so great.
Yeah.
Did you think that Sarri was never coming back?
Yeah. I thought he was going down the tunnel and that was it. Yeah.
I thought he was getting off. Yeah, but I think the guy that he is, I think he inhaled a cig in about 8 seconds and came back. But
yeah.
When you thought being in the ground and thinking he wasn't coming back, that was just electrifying. It's like I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah. Okay. So, KC, you need this. Question 1 or 6?
1, please.
Question 1. Who was the most recent captain to score for Pep Guardiola's City in the League Cup final? Some say most recent, others say only.
I've no idea. Gundogan?
Swing and a miss.
Yeah.
Vincent Kompany against Arsenal.
Oh yeah. I told you know damn well I can remember nothing over the last 10 years.
Yeah, I know. Ask you anything about the 90s, bang on, got it, nailed on. But last 10 years, nothing. Dom, that means you are the winner, but you can extend your lead with a full 3 out of 3 with question number 6. Who were the opponents when City won the League Cup final when it was played at the end of April, the latest it's ever been played in the football calendar?
Oh, is that the Tottenham one because of COVID?
It was the Tottenham one because of COVID. There we go. Played at the end of April. Dom, 3-1 winner. Congratulations.
Yeah, fitting that you finished with a showboat.
Yeah, nice.
This is the Blue Moon Podcast, and we're very sorry about that.
Let's dive into a few of the talking points from the game then, because Dom, I think I didn't realise it until it happened at the end of the game, but I was so pleased that Bernardo Silva got to lift the trophy as the captain, because that feels like something he deserves to have. And this is likely to be his last year as well. So, if he is to go at the end of the season, we've said that for the last 10 years. I understand that, but if he is to go at the end of the season, it's nice that he's had that moment as captain of lifting a trophy.
Yeah, absolutely. Particularly when he was walking back down the steps carrying it. I wouldn't go as far to say he looked like really emotional, but it did seem like it sort of was a moment that kind of hit him quite nicely. He's fantastic, and I think certainly since the turn of the year, any time City have played well, he's been integral to it. But that's often been the case for most of the last 8 years. He's phenomenal. I know, during last season, where he became one of the unks when the old midfield was getting overrun a bit. I always thought that was a bit unfair. He's magnificent. You would just always want him on your team, and he is a wonderful player and an absolutely elite shithouse as well. because Trossard's a bit one of them for Arsenal, but I think it was like
Bernardo just jumps into him all the time, and then that just riles him up. Yeah.
Not to say. Have you seen that? The shot of, I think it's O'Reilly celebrating the second goal, because he peels off to the left to celebrate it. In the background, Bernardo's like right in Trossard's grill celebrating the goal.
Like
never not at
it. Like literally the amount of times while I was watching the match on Sunday that I was just thinking, I just love you little snide. He's just a right little snide. Just great.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to him trying not to get booked against Liverpool, so he doesn't get banned for the Arsenal game. By the way, that's probably not a great combination of circumstances.
He's got to be kept as far away, like almost to the point of sacrifice the FA Cup to keep him as far away from that stadium as possible for that.
He fucking hates Liverpool, though, doesn't he? He hates them.
Yeah, he could get booked without being in the stadium for that game.
He'll never top that coffee cup and big coat moment, will he?
Let's touch on Nico O'Reilly, Casey, because I guess the special part of this final as well is he got the 2 goals that won it, and we've got here a young player who's come through the academy, who's a City fan and a Mancunian, scoring the winners in a cup final. Like that's the stuff of dreams, isn't it?
It is, and you know what as well? Like I was incredibly impressed by how not overwhelmed he seemed to be by the moment. Afterwards as well, like he was, in his interviews after the game, he was very composed. I don't know whether that's like through club media training over the years or whatever, but he was very composed, talking about the tactics of the game and all that sort of stuff. I would have been losing my absolute shit if I was him. And don't get me wrong, he looked like he very thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm not saying he tempered his celebration at all, but he definitely presented himself as a man. As if this is the start of much more to come. Like it's like he's almost thinking, well, this is my first one now. I'm going to have a lot more of these moments, which was impressive. But yeah, both goals very intelligent. Like the way that he like, I think you've described it as ghosting into the box, but I think he's very clinical. If he sees the space, he will take advantage of it. And everyone keeps saying he's a big lad. To me, he's not. He's not big. He's very tall, but he's quite slender, isn't he? But very intelligent and obviously very good in the air, as we've seen at the weekend.
Yeah, Dom, it's weird because Guardiola's done funky things with the left back especially, but with the full backs anyway, since the year dot. But here we are. Like I've never seen a left back get into the 6-yard box quite as often as O'Reilly does, and it's like it's just another thing that Guardiola's looked at him and gone, okay, you're good at this. Just get in those spaces.
Yeah, it's something Guardiola always says, isn't it? And sometimes it can be a bit of a fob off, but like whenever he's asked about tactics and things he's done, he always goes, "Oh, it's about the quality of the players." But that's genuinely the case with O'Reilly because, like as you said, guys like, whether it's Cancelo, whether it's going, Delph was more tucked in, but certainly Cancelo was the first to really play that fullback and get into attacking positions role. I think it's the case that like if Aït-Nouri plays there, he'll encourage him to link with the winger and sort of get down the line because that's what he's really good at. Whereas O'Reilly's got this knack as being sort of a guy that bursts into the box as a youth team midfielder. It's like, right, well, we can apply that to it. And I love how the 2 goals, he said after the game that like Guardiola had said like Zubimendi, you can be stronger than him. So as much as he ghosted in, he also like ragdolled Zubimendi out of the way for the first one. And then the second goal, Saka's come. It's a more conventional thing of the wingers followed him, but hasn't kept tabs on him. And he's really good, isn't he? And I think there's a few players like this at the moment. I think Cherki maybe falls into this category of you just want them in the team. And
you have more confidence in City when O'Reilly's in the team, and that's not a slight on
massively
Aït-Nouri or anything else. But like just the structure of the team feels so much better when he's there.
Yeah. And it can do when Aït-Nouri's there. That means O'Reilly's playing in midfield, and he improves the midfield when he plays in there as well. I mean, it wasn't. It's where Guardiola really got it spot on. It wasn't really the sort of game where you needed that extra body in the middle with Bernardo and Rodri. It's like they could handle whatever Arsenal were or weren't doing. So yeah, I think you trust Guardiola to go with the games where he should play at left back, the games where he should play in midfield. He maybe, I think it's fair to say, he got that wrong at Madrid, but he got it very right at the weekend. And yeah, he's like, you talk about the interviews. I mean, he's done a few interviews with us after games where he doesn't really say a great deal, but I don't think that's. Whenever you get a young player that doesn't say a lot, you think it's like they're a bit nervous and apprehensive about doing press. But I think with O'Reilly, I don't think it is that. I think it's just the fact he thinks, well, yeah, this is all just normal. It's all
obvious. Yeah, it's obvious.
Yeah, well, I mean, of course, I've rocked up in this team, and I'm one of the best players on the pitch. I guess that's the thing of when you come through at his age, he's probably been the best player in every team he's ever played in.
Yeah.
And so he's just cracking on doing that, really. I mean, we've mentioned Bernardo and O'Reilly already. It's one of those two for City Player of the Season, right?
Yeah, surely.
Yeah, definitely.
Just the other before we move on from the goals, I don't know if you saw the replay of it, but Guardiola on the touchline when the ball drops to O'Reilly for the second one, he does a wonderful kind of heading motion of you know when managers like kicking every ball on the touchline. There's one of Guardiola, go and look at it, where he basically heads it in himself from the technical area, and it's a proper like go on. And then like heads it in, and then the celebration after it, it's fantastic. Go and have a look at it if you've not seen it. I want to kind of touch on the front four as well, Casey, because Haaland, Semenyo, Doku, Cherki, all very, very disciplined in their roles in the game, but also like that discipline didn't take away from the creative work that they were doing.
No, and to a sense, I think, with the way that they were disciplined tactically in holding that line as a front four, that's, when you think about it, that's less work for them, isn't it? Rather than, constantly harrying around and trying to win the ball back in what our traditional tactics would be, or not just our tactics, what football has become over the past few years. It's get the ball back as quickly as possible, isn't it? Rather than hold in shape, certainly for the top teams anyway. So you would expect that amount of that it gave them more energy to constantly just, like when we had our foot on Arsenal's neck in the second half, we were just going and going and going and going again. And I was wondering while I was watching the game if during that first half where we were so disciplined, where they were sort of just standing in front of the Arsenal players and blocking off the passing lanes, weren't they? So it was a case of, because they weren't expending that much energy, did that then give them the impetus in the second half to be basically, right, we can just go and go and go again because we've got more energy because we've not expended it in the first half.
And I mean, well, just on that, Dom, you look at the number of times where the ball got played in behind, especially in the second half, and Doku was running onto it, Semenyo was running onto it, and as KC says, the energy they've got there. I mean, like they were both, like it's really weird because they were both really good at carrying the ball and causing Arsenal problems, but also running onto the balls that were being played into space. And Arsenal just couldn't live with it. I mean, you saw the Kepa incident with Doku. That was basically just the Arsenal defence panicking at Doku having the ball.
Yeah, that was really good. I think I struggle to think of many teams, or it must be a nightmare to play against a team when you've got dribblers who are so adept as Doku and Cherki. Like, they don't lose the ball when they dribble. And generally, usually as a defence, I think you'd be quite happy to see people trying to take their man or running with the ball or taking the ball right up close to defenders, because dribbling is hard. It's a high risk thing. It's where you expect to lose the ball. It's why a lot of people don't do it.
What they ought to be doing is 1-2s down the wing, isn't it? Yeah, that's
totally.
How you get down
Yeah. So, notice how even I wasn't pissed enough on Blue WKD to try that dribbling past people. So that's that must be awful to play against. And then you've got some Bernardo. We forget because he does so much. Is a wonderful dribbler as well. And there was, with Doku, Cherki and Bernardo, there were times in that second half where you're thinking, obviously, it's a given that City are going to pass the ball well, but there was just so much. I think all the sort of the dribble-heavy team they had, it felt like they were hogging the ball just to such dispirit and a dispiriting extent for Arsenal. And I thought Semenyo, one thing he did really well was it was just like an object lesson in how to play against a fullback on a yellow card. Like, as Hincapie got himself booked quite early for like clattering into Nunes, and then he just didn't give him a minute.
And it's funny as well because that thing of the number of times you hear it in stadiums of the fullback's been booked, run at him, and the idea of that you're going to get a second yellow card out of it is tantamount in everybody's mind. Whereas actually what you get out of it more often than not is the ability to get in behind and the ability to get a cross in. And like that's what Semenyo got out of that early yellow card. It wasn't that Nketiah was ever really at risk of being sent off. It was that Semenyo just had him on toast.
Yeah, because he didn't dare risk getting himself sent off. So and I thought Semenyo exploited that really well.
But I think I agree with that with the Semenyo thing. But what I have to say is the space that Nunes and Cherki gave him to do it on that side of the pitch as well. Like I thought their movement, especially Nunes' ball carrying, Cherki basically pulling right out to the wing, gave Semenyo the space to do that as well. I thought everywhere all over the pitch tactically, it was everyone was giving the other players on the team the best possible chance to do the most possible damage. I thought it was we were disciplined all over the pitch.
Well, let's move towards those players at the back because Liam's been in touch on Instagram to say, has anyone had a City career turnaround as much as Matheus Nunes? And Dom, I think you've got to say, haven't you, fair play to the lad because I mean, you said earlier on Bernardo or O'Reilly for player of the season. There is a shout for Matheus Nunes.
Absolutely. So, thinking about games he's missed lately is Madrid, Bodo, United. They went well. It's an incredible turnaround because not only is it a guy who was not playing well and now is playing very well as integral, it's a guy who the manager decided, hey, I know I spent 50 million quid to pick you to play you in midfield, but you know what the last thing in the world I'm going to do? It's like, there was that, the midfield was such a mess last year with Rodri injured, people dropping like flies, and the only place he can get in the team was left wing or right back. He ends up being a right back, only after losing the Manchester derby from left back. He's been incredible. I honestly think, you don't like to get ahead of yourself on this of assuming City will simply buy a fullback, but you'd imagine a right back. A right back does appear to be on the shopping list this summer, but it honestly wouldn't surprise me at all if they sign a right back and that right back ends up being back up to Nunes for a while, and I think we'd all be fine with that. He's been amazing. It's a weird one because it's not like when Zinchenko and Delph were like converted from midfielders on a whim. There's a weird element to this of they signed this guy for 50 million quid, and he can't play in midfield. So there's an element where the signing will probably just always feel like a bit of a failure, but God, if he keeps this up, maybe it won't. He's been fantastic.
Because I think when he was at Wolves, you always knew he could carry the ball. But what's really impressed me this season is his crossing ability. Where's that come from? Like he's arguably got the best wide delivery in the squad at the minute.
Yeah, absolutely.
And KC, when you saw in the morning that Ruben Dias was out injured, obviously Mark Gahey cup tied, the centre-back pairing was going to be Kusanov and Ake for the game. I guess Kusanov maybe didn't carry the same sort of worry because he's got a lot of stock at the moment about his pace and his ability to track back and his tackling and recovery sort of abilities. But Ake's had a bit of a tough time of it lately. Like how were you feeling when you saw that as the defensive partnership?
I was slightly worried, but more so from a perspective of is Ake going to break down injured?
Yeah.
Rather than his performance. I know Ake did make quite a big mistake at one point, but it was him that then recovered the issue in the game. But generally speaking, like his performances since we signed him have been very, very good over the years, and it is more his injury record that bothers me. I know he's not been particularly great when he has had to play lately, but I wasn't too concerned with that, especially with Arsenal only playing, like, basically they only played Gyökeres up front, didn't they?
But is it a kind of a toss of a coin as well? Because like, if he'd picked Stones, you'd probably have the same fears of Stones, would you, about his injury record?
I'd be more worried about Stones being injured, yeah. And obviously, I think everyone knows that. Obviously, John Stones is the obvious answer to the question of who's had a better turnaround in the City career from where he was. But Yeah, with Stones, his injury record is even worse, isn't it? Like, did I see something the other day? He's only played like 150 minutes this season or something, or
it's very low. Yeah,
yeah, it's very low.
I might be a bit higher than that given a couple of cup appearances, but it's very low.
So you would rather, but if Ake was injured, what options would we have had off the bench really? Because obviously he's not trusting Stones. That's what I mean. He's not trusting Stones. So yeah, that was the big concern. But yeah, I thought they did really well. But yeah, I'm never really worried about Kusanov. The guy's just a brilliant maniac, isn't he? Just he would, like, we were like, me and a couple of people were talking during the game, and they were describing his attributes and all this, that, and the other. In that, you know, he can be a nasty piece of work. He can fly in, you know, and he can do all this, that, and the other. And the attributes of how they were describing him I was basically like, he's basically like Martin Keown, but with pace and an ability to pass. You know, that sort of strange tenacity that Kusanov seems to have. I absolutely love the guy. But I think everyone loves him, don't they?
Yeah.
That bit at the end where they were like the City players were seems like have to explain to. This is the weird thing about Kusanov, is like he is this monster of a centre half, but he seems like so sort of childlike innocent. Like the fact he's had a kid, it's like, how are you having a kid, mate? You're about 12. But like where it looked like Haaland, Donnarumma were having to explain to him how to do the way with the cup at the fans.
Yeah.
And the third time he did it, he smacked his medal with the cup and like had like the ribbon all over his face. Just brilliant.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. But yeah, I don't think. I think if somebody sorted him out with a proper haircut, it would go a long way to getting rid of the childlike stuff.
Yeah. Final thought on the game from us. Dom, we've got this far in and we've not mentioned James Trafford yet. Not a huge amount.
I think I did briefly.
Yeah, but sorry, not properly. Yeah. Not a huge amount to do. But that triple save at the start.
Yeah, it was class. Really good. Although a not great consequence of it for me is I put the highlights on the next morning when I was getting my daughter ready for school, and she started being one of your lot, Moon. She started playing in net in under sevens.
Good on her.
And really enjoyed the Trafford triple save, and then said, also that goalie kit looks really nice. So it's like, all right, really. So that's it's got a bit of pink on it, so that's gone down well. So yeah, in me going, oh look at what the City goalie did, I'm probably gonna have to get into the bargain basement goalie kits when that happens in the club shop in a month or so. But no, really good. I'm delighted for him. I know we've all like the I was saying to you the other day when Sam Lee nearly made him cry in the mix zone. When he's like, obviously it's. I thought he came up for an interview where a player is going, I'm unhappy and I'm probably going to leave, basically, in as many words. And yeah, some people can get very weird about player interviews, can't they? But I think
there was some suggesting after that he shouldn't even play in this final, and I don't agree with that at all. Yeah,
I was very impressed with that interview.
Yeah, wow. I mean those people I'd like to suggest they get some mates, but also I think it was certainly in my line of work, when people moan that footballers, you'd never see their human side and it's all sort of media trained in answers and just all PR stuff. I don't want to see a player getting criticised for showing their human side like Trafford did then. And I thought he came across really well. I think it's not an accident, I don't think, that all the best performances since the turn of the year have maybe been in the Cups and he's been involved in them. I mean, there's no point going over and over the Donnarumma with his feet chat and all that, but Trafford is obviously better at that side of it, and he's got the big saves as well. I mean, that triple save happens, but there's the saves he's made in both games at St James's Park. I'm really looking forward to him playing in the Liverpool game, which he will, because obviously a lot of like League Cup home games, it's maybe not the biggest atmosphere, not the biggest attendance, but that ground is going to be packed and bouncing for a game against Liverpool, early kick-off, first game after winning a pot, so that's always, they get announced onto the pitch as the Carabao Cup winners and everyone goes nuts. And he really deserves to be playing in that atmosphere, and I'm glad that happens for him. And I don't know. I know it looks like we're reaching the end of the story with James Trafford, but Wouldn't it be nice if we weren't?
I really like. I thought he come across really well. He seems like a really sound bloke. Like especially that bit where he misheard the interviewer's question on ITV. And just started naming his mates that had got tickets.
That was so good.
So he just seems like a normal lad, but we do look a lot better progressing the ball with him. Like we are like, and it is a considerable difference between how we progress the ball when Donnarumma's in that. And it is just unfortunate the way that it's worked out. But I would love him to stay, and I said at the start, I would have been happy for him to be our number one. And I think most people probably would have been if it wasn't for Donnarumma, wouldn't they?
Mm. Yeah.
If City win the FA Cup and Trafford does an interview after that final, I want him to name unbroken everyone from Cumbria who's got tickets. Big Dan, Keith, Rog from the Dog and Duck, all these guys. Just like let him go. I want to know all his mates.
Yeah, we need names, James. Get them them out there. Yeah,
name them all, and then maybe they can be mates with the people who are cross about his interview.
Yeah.
The world moves fast. Your workday, even faster. Pitching products, drafting reports, analyzing data. Microsoft 365 Copilot is your AI assistant for work. Built into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other Microsoft 365 apps you use. Helping you quickly write, analyze, create, and summarize. So you can cut through clutter and clear a path to your best work. Learn more at Microsoft.com/M365 Copilot.
It's the Paradise Podcast.
I am your host, Ryan Michelle Bethay, with my husband, Sterling.
What's up?
Join us here on Hulu and Hulu on Disney+, where we'll discuss each episode with the cast and crew of Paradise. I'll be getting all the secrets from Dan Fogelman, James Marsden, Shailene Woodley, Julianne Nicholson, and Sterling Kelby Brown. Woo! Paradise, the official podcast, is now streaming.
And stream Paradise on Hulu and Hulu on Disney+.
You can listen to the show ad-free by joining our Patreon, patreon.com/Blue Moon Podcast.
Let's carry on the positivity around the cup final now, and let's get another view. It was a fascinating game for how City asked questions of Arsenal that they just weren't able to answer. To discuss the tactical side of it a little bit more, I've been speaking to the Athletic's John Mackenzie.
In many respects, these kind of games always feel quite formulaic. Because what you get is two teams who want to do the same thing. They want to control the ball with and without the ball. And they want to, I suppose, see what the other team does in order to respond to it, right? So we've had, in the last few seasons, these kind of games have been often termed like quite dour affairs. And the sort of classic chess match example is always given, but I think there's a level of truth to that, because what you get is a coach saying, okay, when we're trying to build up, this is where they're trying to force us. This is where they're causing us problems. So let's maybe make this little tweak to fix it, and vice versa with, out of possession. It was like, well, they're hurting us on this side. So what can we do to make sure that we're not generating a free man for them over on that side of the pitch? And essentially what happens is those games sort of like boil down into a bit of a standstill, right? And people complain about them. I think, they're enjoyable to watch from a tactical point of view if you know what's going on, but if not, it just essentially becomes a very staid affair. And that's sort of what happened in the game, I think. But what was so interesting for me about it was that Guardiola sort of tore up the copybook from like the last few years of tactical theory and was like, okay, fine, you're going to want to try and progress the ball. And the way that you do that is through Arsenal, very, very good at like having these what I would call rotational principles in build-up, where they're moving the players around to try and generate separation from man markers, right? Because that's just been the way that football has moved now. If you're trying to build from the back against a big side, they're going to probably jump to a man-to-man phase to give you no time and space to actually move the ball. And so Arsenal's whole build-up based around this idea of like, well, we can create space for our players by moving them in these rotational patterns, generating a bit of separation. We can bounce the ball, and then once we get through that press, we can then open out the space in behind, and we can go from there. And what Guardiola and City said was, what about if we ignore the sort of man principles that teams have been using in the last 5 years? And we're just going to have a zonal block, a sort of a front four that, they're active at times. If the ball goes into their zone, these players are going to step out. But for the most part, they're happy to allow Arsenal's centre-backs and goalkeeper to have the ball, and then they say, fine, we're going to pose you a problem for you to solve. And in the end, Arsenal couldn't solve it. And the result was that Arsenal were forced to go long into overloaded areas where City were winning the first and second balls and able to retain possession. I thought City were much more brave in the build-up phase then against Arsenal, and the result was that City had 60% possession through the game. Give City control and possession, and they're a very hard team to beat even now. So I thought it was a really interesting approach from Guardiola. I also thought it was a pretty disappointing approach from Arsenal in trying to solve the problem that was set for them.
Yeah, I'm interested in that as well because one of the discussions I've been having elsewhere with if Guardiola was coming up against this sort of problem, it feels like he'd do something like just send Bernardo Silva to go and get the ball, or he would just put more men in the back line, and it felt like City were just forcing Arsenal to pass sideways and back to the goalkeeper and then go over the top, where Kusanov's pace was basically winning out pretty much every time. When you look at those two setups and you look at the way that, we've talked already this season about the way that football has changed this season, could you see this approach being a much more common thing now against teams that are happy to accept pressure when they've got the ball in their own defensive third?
Well, it's worth remembering the history, right? Because this approach has been used against City before. For me, the most interesting example was in the 2024 FA Cup final against Man United, which is a funny game, right? Because in many respects, the way that Man United played was much of a muchness, and it felt as though City shot themselves in the foot in that final, rather than they had these tactical problems posed for them that they couldn't really solve. But I think off the back of that, there was a few teams at the beginning of the 24-25 season then who tried to adopt this 4-2-4 approach with a zonal front line against City to see if they could cause them any problems. And I think even in that first game of the season, which was against Chelsea, Maresca used that setup, and Guardiola had already got a solution to those problems. And what he did is he played. He basically ended up in a 3-diamond-3 in possession, and the centre backs were really far apart. The goalkeeper joined them, and the idea was to pull that front line of four apart as much as possible, and then overload the midfield with a diamond. So you had midfielders in the wide areas. So you basically had a 3 against the opposition 2 midfielders. Pull the spaces apart. Find those passing lanes. If they try and block into the fullback, you've got one of the centre midfielders in the wide areas just dropping into the half spaces and picking it up. And so very quickly those sorts of approaches died out against City because Guardiola found the solution pretty quickly. So it may be the case that we see some teams trying that kind of approach. I do think that the issue was not so much that it's impossible to play against in the modern game. Although I do think it is interesting that it almost felt as though to solve that kind of problem, you need to understand positional principles very intrinsically as a side, and you can find solutions to those problems. Whereas Arsenal seems so well versed in generating separation from man-man approaches that it almost feels like in the last few seasons they've lost that ability to be able to find those solutions structurally themselves on the pitch. That said, interestingly enough, I watched the game back yesterday, and Arsenal did a really good job of actually breaking that press in the first 10 minutes of the game. They did a couple of times where they did exactly what we're talking about, right? Which is they played with low fullbacks, it spread the line apart, and they were finding passes through the lines. But then they very quickly started pushing their fullbacks higher and just having the 2 centre-backs back. And I think they thought, if we push the fullbacks higher, we can play around the City front 4 and then access the midfielders in behind them. But whenever that happened, the City front four would just shift across and cover the fullback anyway, and they never got any joy out of it. And so in the end, the solutions I think that maybe Guardiola or the coaching staff offered didn't actually work. So as a result of that, it sort of felt quite disappointing to me in terms of, as a neutral, I sort of wanted to see how Arsenal would solve those issues, and they didn't really do it. So yeah, I think that it's one of those interesting tactics where you can use it in a final, and you're basically throwing them a curveball, and if it doesn't work out, then you're golden, and that's how it worked out for City. I think if you used it as a longer term tactic, it wouldn't be that functional for very long. But what I do think is ironic about all of this is that how many finals have we watched with Guardiola in them where people claim that he's overthought the approach, and they've lost, and people are like, oh, typical Guardiola, overthinking things again. But I think it's worth saying that that's just the nature of cup final football, is that yes, you can stick and play the approach that you've been playing all season, and then just have it broken down in terms of the performances of the players on the pitch, and it be a much more neutral kind of tactical affair. Or you can just do a curveball thing like this, and if your players can play in that way, then maybe it works out for them. And I think a similar thing happened in the Champions League final against Inter, when you went with a three diamond three again in that approach, and it almost felt as though there was a downside to it because the City players weren't used to playing in that kind of build-up shape, or some of the angles were a bit different, some of the players were a bit further apart from one another, but in the end you did still win that game. And again, it's one of those ones where people won't ever talk about it as Pep overthinking because they won, but that's exactly what he's done in other finals, and it's gone wrong, and then people have said this is the issue with Pep, is that he overthinks. So there's certainly an interesting conversation to be had about that, because you could make the argument that City should just be able to beat these teams playing the way they've been playing all season and relying on the performances of the players. But I also understand why Guardiola does that, because if it comes off, then you take an underdog team in the Carabao Cup final this time around, and they win the game comfortably with very little pushback, I thought, from Arsenal in the end.
Yeah, it's interesting the kind of the pressing shape as well, because like the City were kind of in a high press but not actually pressing. And I've seen a lot of talk afterwards, had Arsenal picked David Raya instead of Kepa Arrizabalaga, things could have been different, and maybe they could have been. But ultimately, if Guardiola adopts this approach against whoever the personnel is, does the personnel actually matter in this instance?
Yeah, I mean, I would describe this as a high block, really. There were situations where the front line were jumping up, particularly if the ball went sort of into the wider areas. You'd see the two wingers, so Doku and Semenyo, I guess, on that side, jumping into the higher areas. Or is it maybe? No, it was Semenyo, yeah. But yeah, and so I think there probably were ways that had Arsenal different personnel in there, it would have changed things. Elite players are so good that they can find solutions, not just tactical solutions, right? They can almost just find, the classic kind of Modric and Kroos, give those two whatever scenario and they'll find ways of playing the ball through it. What I thought was so interesting about Arsenal was that how I think it was just a lack of braveness from the first line, so Kepa and then the two centre backs. So just saying to them, fine, we're going to give you space that you can attack. You can always find passing lanes through even a compact four, especially if you spread them out and try and create that tension for them. Well,
one thing I noticed that Kusanov has done quite a lot recently is carry the ball towards one of those players, draw them out, and then pass it to his centre-back partner, who now has maybe 5-10 yards further of space to then drive into themselves. He was doing that on Sunday as well.
Yeah, and I think part of the issue there is a structural one, because if you do that in a back two, essentially with a goalkeeper, and you drive towards the ball and you've got fullbacks pushed high, you've got far fewer escape routes in that scenario. So I think, again, in that situation, I think Guardiola would probably have gone with a three situationally, maybe invert one of the fullbacks inside behind the line, but he would stretch them out wide. And again, there's definitely solutions to all of these things, but I also feel as though the centre backs that Arsenal have, maybe they've just got so used to problems being solved by the pivots and the fullbacks that they don't have the It's not really necessarily even braveness. It's it's a form of risk aversion, which we know Arsenal typify, right? And you can argue that City have had that risk aversion in the past in certain phases of play as well. But I thought in this one it was very much the case that they just didn't want to risk the possibility of losing the ball around their own goal, and would much rather compete and contest the ball higher up the pitch, maybe in an underload. Whereas I think if you contrast that with the way that City built up, City actually were very brave in their build up, and there was times when you almost lost the ball, but actually it sort of turned out for the better. And as a result of Arsenal pressing high, you then have those spaces between the lines that you can then sort of decompress into and run through. That's what Arsenal were trying to do, and the City setup is very tempting for them to do that, right? Because you're sitting in front of the pivot players. So if you can get through that line of four, then those like Rice and Zubamendi receive the ball in those areas. They've got space in front of them, and in theory it can be very scary to do, but they just weren't even taking that bait. And I think City would have found solutions had that happened, but for me it very much came down to, well, the players they're just not brave enough on the ball. And yeah, you could throw in Eze, you could throw in Raya, you could throw in Odegaard, and those players are good enough to find individual solutions. But I think that we've lost a little bit of that level of the players should be able to find tactical solutions themselves too. And I think that's what Guardiola is so good at coaching, right? The ability to find those positional advantages for the players to recognise the angles that are dangerous and the where they should position themselves so that they're causing tensions. I mean, we're doing a show on the evolution of the fullback this week because it's international break, and so we're hooking it off Nico O'Reilly, and I was just watching him through the whole game, just his positioning, and he's so well coached at that. Like he knows that when Saka is marking him and he's behind him, that he needs to drag Saka out of the way to a point where Saka is like, fine, I'm going to pass him on to Zubamendi. Then as soon as Zubamendi takes him up, he then wants to sit back in behind Saka because he's then in that space. So Guardiola clearly teaches the players, these are the positions that you can take up that are going to be the most threatening. It's going to cause the most problems for the opponents. It's going to generate these tensions of threat where they're like, oh, I want to be standing here from a sort of zonal defensive position, but I recognise that player is free too, and I think it's so clear that when you watch City, the players have that still. Whereas with some of the Arsenal players, I just didn't get the impression that they were like, where can I position myself just to make this harder for City to do the job that they're trying to do when they're blocking us out with this 4-2-4.
It's interesting you mentioned O'Reilly because I wanted to ask about the fullbacks specifically because Matheus Nunes on the other side was quite often tucking in to make the three, but was so often very advanced. He got the assist for the second goal by overlapping Rodri into the box. Now you don't do that if you're just sitting in and tucking in and making a three. And at the same time, Nico O'Reilly's playing left back. He scored both goals with a header in the 6-yard box, and City have often had the fullbacks, or certainly one of the fullbacks, roaming into midfield and stepping out of the position. But O'Reilly seems to be kind of on acid doing that. It seems to be kind of times 1,000 on like doing that. What's different about this iteration of how City are trying to do it with the fullbacks?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, what's different about this iteration is it's almost a problem that's been solved by necessity, right? It's Nico O'Reilly was originally being played as a centre midfielder. I mean, that was the Community Shield last season, was it, when he was first brought in to do that, and then Nunes was brought in as a centre midfielder who Guardiola effectively said, you're not smart enough to play centre midfield, so we're going to play you somewhere else. And I was looking
an absolute last resort at fullback.
Yeah. And I was looking at some data yesterday. It was like passing. It was like just pass success versus like tackle success for fullbacks in the Premier League, and Nunes just like outstanding compared to everyone else in those areas. So I think part of it is just what we're talking about on the show this week is the fact that in the past fullbacks were always sort of like large space players, and in part you would stick them there because they didn't really have the technicality to do the small space stuff. So you want players in there who are sort of maxed out on the ability to just make runs up and down all day long, defend big spaces in transition, compared to what a centre back will do, which is largely defending smaller spaces. And what we've seen now is, what we saw, I suppose, in the high Guardiola era was a recognition that, what we could do is we can put a really technical player in that fullback position, and then they can come in and do the small space stuff. So you can then push your interiors really high. You can have your De Bruyne and Silva in the same team and still feel like you're not compromising from a defensive point of view. And obviously that had a degree of success as well. But what we're seeing now, I think, is that the game is so much more flexible and the spaces aren't always available in the same areas. So we talked already before, some teams are going to press super high and open out space between their midfield and defensive line. So if you have a fullback who's good in large spaces, you can put them into the centre of the field and almost use them as like carriers once you've broken the press. And also, if you're wanting to use your wingers in narrow iterations, you can use them as traditional fullbacks and get them bombing down the line. And we saw both Nunes and O'Reilly playing in that way last season when you were doing lots of overloading in the middle and leaving the wide channels open for the fullbacks. But I think the beauty with someone like O'Reilly in particular is he's a good small space player and large space player. It just gives you an incredible amount of flexibility. So what you can do is you can use him almost maximizing his strengths in every different phase of play, and that's why you'll see him sometimes moving inside and doing small space stuff. Sometimes you'll see him doing the potential carrying into the space once the press is broken, or the traditional fullback stuff. But you can also use him as almost like a 10 or even a 9. And I thought that was what was so interesting about him in the Carabao Cup final, was he was almost like taking some of the pressure off Haaland, having to occupy centre backs as an almost second centre forward figure to aim at. I think one of the things we're seeing recently, we actually did our show on Haaland last week. Why is he not scoring as much? Oppositions are just overloading Haaland. They're physically dominating him in a way that, there's nothing anyone could do about it. If you have two centre-backs on you, one of whom is just not even trying to get the ball and is just trying to block your route to goal, and then the other one covering behind you, it's going to be very hard for him to generate the sort of dangerous moments he does from back post crosses. But what we saw precisely in this game is O'Reilly being able to just ghost in and play behind him and fill in those spaces, coming up against a Zubamendi or a Saka, where he's going to be ahead of the ball when it's Saka quite comfortably, and with Zubamendi he has the physical advantage over him. And so it's I think that's where we're moving now with fullbacks. I know it arguably all positions, but I think fullbacks are the most interesting ones because there's a degree of flexibility with them where you can say, what are the skill sets of these players? In possession, we want them to do this. In transition moments, we want them to do this. Against settled defences, we want them to do this. Defensively, we want them to do this. And then let's try and get those players into the spaces where they can do those things the best in each phase. And I think that's why Nico O'Reilly is almost like a standout player in that regard, is that he has so many strings to his bow that he can offer you he can just offer you whatever you need at different phases. So he was basically playing as a fullback out of possession, a central midfielder in certain like transitional phases, a classic fullback sort of allowing Doku to do what he does and covering around him as and when he moves, and then a second striker at times as well. So it's really enjoyable, I think, to watch. And and that's just O'Reilly. We've not even talked about Nunes, who I think has a bit more of a settled role. He's almost like playing as a bit of a Kyle Walker at the moment, right, with the possibility that he can get forward into those wide channels when the play is pulled across. But it just gives a huge amount of flexibility. So if you want to play with Doku and Semenyo, you can play with both of those fullbacks. But let's say you want to use Semenyo on one side and use Semenyo narrow and then have Nunes going around on the outside, you can do that as well. O'Reilly and Doku can interchange. So if you want Doku going through the middle at times, then O'Reilly can cover the wide areas. It's just a huge amount of flexibility for Guardiola to be able to just make things hard for opponents.
Yeah, I have to ask you this, John, because we spoke to you earlier in the season when City signed Gianluigi Donnarumma and talked about the build-up. Obviously, James Trafford has played through the Carabao Cup and through the FA Cup as well. And some of City's best performances against some of the toughest opposition in the league have come when he's been part of the build-up. What's your assessment of the situation right now? Because it's likely Trafford will leave in the summer. I don't think City bring Donnarumma in and then kind of ditch him a year into the project. But it does feel like Trafford might have more to offer than City are currently getting out of it.
Yeah, and look, I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and say I told you so, but I think that it is interesting that in the the cup that they've played Trafford regularly, it feels like we've seen as you say, some of the best performances from City. I think I've already mentioned how brave City were in build-up and how important that was to the game. I don't think you get that same level of upside in the build-up with Donnarumma in the same position, and so you can argue that's a great example of why it is that you want to have your keeper be a good small space goalkeeper, to use the language we've been talking about with fullbacks there. But I don't know what happens in the future. But yeah, my temptation is always to say that if you can have a goal, if you're wanting to build from the back, if you're wanting to. And you know, there's plenty of different ways of doing that, and there's plenty of different skill sets that each goalkeeper has. And you know, a lot of people will point to the numbers and say, "Look, Donnarumma is doing a good job. Look at his pass success rate." But I think again, it's what we were talking about before with in the build-up, the fact that City players have like just an innate sense of how to make things hard for their opponents. And I think when you have a goalkeeper who has the ability to manipulate things to a greater degree, which is what I think Trafford has and Donnarumma doesn't have. So you can look at pass success rate and say, yeah, he's finding these players. But actually, if you watch the tape, the scenarios he's finding the players in is making it harder for them to receive the ball, is maybe they're receiving the ball behind. And those are the fine margins that make it very hard for you to build up at the level that is required in the Premier League with this man-marking shift that we've seen. Those are the details I think that really matter. And I don't know if Guardiola has changed his mind on anything. I still feel as though he has been a little bit reticent to accept this meta shift that we talk about all the time. I still think deep down he believes maybe we can get back to the way things were before. But I also kind of feel as though he lent quite heavily into the direct football paradigm a bit as well, where it was like, well, we're going to go long a lot more. It's going to become a bit more transitional. And, you know, in those scenarios, you can understand the benefit of someone like a Donnarumma, right? Because you get the upside in shot stopping, but you also get this realization, well, we're not going to try and do too much intricate build-up stuff. It's just bounce it around a few times, and then if the goalkeeper needs to go long, he needs to go long, and we're set up to sort of have a solution in those sorts of scenarios when you're playing the ball long into forwards. But I think it is instructive that I don't think that game can happen in the way that it happens without Trafford being the goalkeeper to play. And I don't know, it brings me back to you remember when Arsenal signed Raya, and there's these big conversations. It's like certain games we're going to play Ramsdale, certain games we're going to play Raya. Maybe it's impossible to rotate goalkeepers in that way because there always has to be a level of like momentum for goalkeeping, I think, because it's such a psychological position, as you yourself will know. But I think in a perfect world, you have both of those kind of goalkeepers available for you to dependent on the game, and then the question is how happy Guardiola is to just shift between different tactical approaches. But yeah, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this actually as a goalkeeper. Do you think it's just impossible for a manager to run a rotational goalkeeping system like that?
I just think back to 2001-2 when Kevin Keegan would pull Nicky Weaver in and then play him for 10 games and then play Carlo Nash for 10 games, and both of them independently of each other said to me that it was really, really weird. Right, yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if it's possible. One final question then, John, because obviously the title race is tight. It's not as tight as it might otherwise have been had City not dropped points in games against West Ham and Forest. They have a game in hand. They face Arsenal at the Etihad in a few weeks. There is the big possibility that Arsenal can come to the Etihad and play for the draw because they don't need to do anything in the game. With all of this going on, and with the way that the final went, and with the likelihood that Donnarumma will come in instead of Trafford for this one, how much impact do you think that final actually has on the next few weeks? Because a lot was said in the build-up to it. You know, if City win, it could knock Arsenal's confidence. Could it really?
Yeah, look, it's definitely Arsenal's title to lose, right? That's the underlying context here. As you say, they only need to get a draw at the Etihad, and then it's something mad like they only have to win like 3 more games in the league, and it's pretty much done. So it's definitely in their hands. And I think the context of the Carabao Cup final is One where they can be like, okay, there's mitigating circumstances. We played a mixed 11. We had, not our starting keeper, etc. They will argue the first goal comes from a mistake by the goalkeeper, which, if that doesn't happen, then maybe things are different. Despite the fact that I think everyone would agree that the momentum is certainly in City's favour in that second half. But yeah, I think that, and the other thing to say is that the tactical tweak that we saw from City, Arsenal will have a solution for that if they try and use that again at the Etihad. So I'd be surprised if we saw a repetition of that anyway. But yeah, I think I don't know whether or not either coach will take anything from a final. I think they'll both be sanguine enough that it's like it's a one-off game. The rules of logic don't really apply in the league that apply in these knockout competitions. So I would suspect that it's sort of business as usual when the two teams get back together. But I think that'll be a really fascinating game to see what kind of solutions we see, because both coaches there is a sort of game of chicken, right? Does Arteta have to field a team which is able to break down that City defence if they do the same thing they did in the Carabao Cup, or does he just assume that they're not going to do that and then go for what he thinks would be the best way of breaking down City's league approach? That'll be a fun one to watch, but beyond that I don't really have any insight, I'm afraid.
This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking. Maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
If you enjoy the show, please give it a rating and a review wherever you get your podcasts.
The Athletic's John Mackenzie there. We're going to squeeze in a few listener questions at bluemoonpodcast.com on Blue Sky. You can email contact at bluemoonpodcast.com as well. And we're trying to regularly put a story up on the Instagram feed for questions on there. So do have a look. Just search Blue Moon Podcast on Instagram. And if I remember, I'll stick a little story up with a sticker in for you to send some questions in. Elle's been in touch on Instagram with two questions that I'm going to roll together. She says, it's been reported that Guardiola is making a decision on his future during this international break. Could winning the Carabao Cup in the way that they did make him feel like there's still a lot to work with and that he shouldn't leave at the end of the season? Or could he now feel like he's leaving on a high if he goes this May? KC, there's been a lot of talk for Guardiola's future, given that it was reported as a 2-year contract when he signed it. So how are you feeling about this summer? Are you still quite relaxed about it, or are you like, is there so much noise that it's getting you a bit nervous?
In my head for the past few months, I've just assumed that this is it. He's going, isn't he? Like that's whether it's because I'm the sort of person that would just go for the worst case scenario, and then if anything's better than that, I'll take as a positive and deal with things. That is probably the sort of person I am. But
a City fan, a traditional City fan,
I have absolutely zero knowledge whatsoever. Not just on Pep Guardiola, just on any subject ever. But I have zero knowledge on this situation. But my gut feeling is just that he's gone, and that's the way I felt for the majority of the season.
As a man who I have seen pluck all sorts of knowledge out of like random stuff for pub quizzes, the ability for you to sit there and say you've got no knowledge of anything, I mean, is absolutely wild. Eurovision winners followed by I don't know, all sorts of sporting achievement from the 60s, followed by like pop culture references that everybody's forgotten about. KC, if I ever get onto Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, KC is one of my phone of friends. That's how much I've seen him pluck things out for.
That's the highest of compliments, thank you. Yeah, just no quizzes on Pep Guardiola's League Cup trophies, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Dom, kind of rolling into that, Elle also asked about Rodri's future, because he's given an interview in the last couple of days where he said, I've got 1 year left on my contract. At some point we'll sit down and have a talk. Even though I've played for Atleti, Madrid isn't a closed door for me. You can't turn your back on the best clubs. I would like to return to the Spanish league. I still follow it. The Premier League is my weakness, but it is also a very demanding league. For now, I am very happy there. with the idea that this is Bernardo's last season, with those quotes from Rodri, with the rumours about Guardiola, it feels like there is a massive change on the way.
Yeah, I mean, there's kind of been a massive change already, and the win at the weekend, as much as you want to rightly praise Semenyo, Cherki, Kusanov, O'Reilly, Trafford, how much of that game unfolds as it is if you haven't got Rodri and Bernardo in the middle. But yeah, I guess in Rodri's circumstances, this is what it kind of makes you think how remarkable it is that City got so long out of Aguero and Silva, like those Spanish-speaking superstars that like the big Madrid and Barca move. I know Aguero eventually went to Barca on like a free transfer. But
I was going to chuck De Bruyne into that as well, but it's right as well that like the Spanish-speaking thing is interesting there. It's like it feels like Madrid is the destination for the Spanish speakers. Yeah.
I mean, and certainly Real Madrid are obsessed with the Ballon d'Or, and once he won one, you'd like to think that them all seeing their arse when he won it would make him think, I'm never playing for them, they're a bunch of rotters. But that's probably more of a fans thing than a players thing. He's 29. He joined City in 2019. City have had absolutely the best years of his career. He did the thing in Istanbul. He also, around that time, for 2 years, because they couldn't get any cover for him whatsoever, played every week. Eventually, and then his knee collapses in on him. So yeah, he's 29, he's got a year left in his contract, he's the wrong side of a major career-altering injury, and Real Madrid are interested. It's a bit like Sane going to Bayern Munich, where if a German team comes and asks for a German player, if a Bayern Munich comes and asks for a German player, they're going to go there. If a Spanish team comes and asks for a Spanish player, God, why can't I talk? If Real Madrid comes and asks Real Madrid comes and asks for a Spanish player, then it looks like it might happen. And I don't know, Madrid kind of like doing these free transfers. Like Mbappe was a free one. Alexander Arnold was a free until they slung some pocket money Liverpool's way to let him play in the Club World Cup. So maybe Madrid will be like, they wanted to run his contract down and play next season. City might be, and then the ball's in City's court of whether they want him to get some money for him this summer or not. I mean, the complication is, I think he'd have got like a mega contract before the ACL, like Haaland level maybe, I don't know, because he's that good, he's that important. He was the best player in the world when it happened. If you're City, as much as Rodri is best, and we're just seeing him getting back towards that, as much as he's massive for everything working better, you can't really give him the same level of contract you would have done before he had such a serious injury. When he is 29 now, he's still only just getting back after a very, very bad knee injury. So I don't know. I think a lot of it adds up to say that it probably happens. So
do you think, Casey, if it is probably going to happen, there is a chance that City could lose someone like Nico Gonzalez at the moment because he isn't playing often enough? Does that need to be weighed into the equation as well? If there's a chance that, if Rodri isn't going to sign a new contract, but he is going to stay for until the end of his current one, do you kind of have to go, okay, well, we can't rely on you as much, so therefore, Nico, you need to come in and play some more?
Well, I think Gonzalez should probably play some more anyway, just because of the extent of Rodri's injury. But Pep just doesn't like to do that, does he? He likes to play players until the knee falls apart, doesn't he, really? But yeah, I would like to see him get more game time, just if God forbid anything happened to Rodri and we had to rely on him for the run, we had to rely on Gonzalez for the running, you'd want him to have had more games under his belt recently so that he's not coming in, completely out of the cold, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Final question then comes from Sam on the emails. After Cherki's keepy-uppies, are there any other favourite instances of City players showboating? I still think about Sterling's stepovers at the end of the 3-1 derby in 2018. And along those lines as well, Sayak on Instagram has asked, who are your favourite City rage baiters? And Leo on Instagram says, with Cherki's juggling skills, what roles in the circus could City players have?
What?
Who's answering which one?
I don't know what a rage baiter is. For a start,
a rage baiter. Come on, someone who is baiting somebody else to get angry.
Oh right, okay. So me, right. In terms of showboating, obviously, first thing that would spring to mind would be Balotelli's shoulder. But my favourite is Kyle Walker pretending that the ball boy wasn't giving him the ball back for a throw in at Old Trafford, where he just kept knocking it back to him. I don't know whether that counts as showboating, but
I was going to say, is that showboating?
I think that's showboating.
Rage boating.
It was showboating.
It's certainly rage. That is rage baiting. So that is definitely rage baiting.
Right. Okay. Because for me, it wasn't the actual giving the ball back that was showboating. It was his confused. It was his confused acting. That was the showboating because everyone knew what he was doing. And then rage baiter. Yeah, I suppose you'd have to go with Walker then. And then what was the last question? Who would be a clown?
Who'd be good in the circus because of Cherki's juggling skills?
Oh, right, okay. I reckon Kusanov could be a lion tamer.
Just looks at the lion and the lion runs off. Yeah, yeah. Rage baiting also from that same derby as the Kyle Walker incident. Dom, can I chuck you Bernardo Silva dribbling into the United box and then going nope, going back to the corner flag?
Yeah.
Is that the same game? Yeah, that was the one I was going to say. It's all that passage of play of the smacking it against Ashley Young to win throw-ins and corners is all brilliant. But the best bit is Bernardo could clearly go and have a shot, but turns back around and because after Bernardo goes in the box and comes back, the big way from City when he wins the throw-in is just that's the stuff.
Cherki did that in the cup final as well, though, and it was posted on Twitter or X, formerly Twitter, as I think you'll find that Calafiori won this bout because Cherki didn't get into the box. So it's like, come on, lads, it's 2-0. It's 85 minutes. Cherki's dribbled into the box and then gone, no, I'm going back to the corner flag. I think Cherki knows what he's doing here.
Jesus wept.
That's it, lads. Send the medals back. So I think the Balotelli one, like Casey said, massive. Rage baiters, I know we've been over this. Bernardo, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah.
You know, baiting rage during a guard of honour with a cup of tea takes something, I think.
Yeah, it's beautiful. That is it for this episode of the Blue Moon Podcast. Thank you very much for listening, and thanks also to my guests for this one, Dom Farrell.
Thank you very much.
And Casey.
Safe.
There is a clip of this week's Nostalgia episode coming up shortly. That was City fan Luke Stanley picking out his 5 choices for the games that made me. If you want to hear the full thing now, then just head on over to members.bluemoonpodcast.com. I'll be back again next week to look ahead to the FA Cup tie with Liverpool. See you there.
That was the Blue Moon Podcast. Please give the show a rating and a review where you can. And don't forget, you can listen without the ads by signing up to our Patreon. You'll also get an extra episode each Monday. Here's a clip of this week's.
I'd have been in year 3 at this point. The cockiest kids were the United fans. Obviously, they were winning everything. It was at that weird age where some kids don't even kind of understand or grasp football that well. So, you've got a few of the lads now that even I'm still mates with now that wouldn't have been too into it at this stage in sort of year 3, but throughout primary school, I think City grew, obviously, as you'd expect, but I'd say it was probably 60-40 United to City.
Did that add a level of nerves to this game? Because this is the big occasion.
Yeah, it was absolutely insane, to be honest. I can remember everyone just gassing it up, and I think there was an expectation when City played United as well that United would probably win at this point. That was just kind of how it was. It felt like this was a real power shift in Manchester, to be honest, this win in particular, to go to Wembley, where we have so much pressure on us to win a trophy. We're not won a trophy in 35 years, and yet it's United in a semi-final. As soon as that comes out, you're thinking they're gonna do us here. But yeah, we got the job done.
Do you still remember the moment the final whistle went?
Yeah, I remember. I couldn't actually believe it that they genuinely felt like that 5 minutes was going to go on for like forever. That's genuinely what it was. Like, I couldn't quite believe that we could actually go and win that game.
You can listen to more of that at patreon.com/Blue Moon Podcast. And join us again next time for another episode.